Well, coal's traditionally been very important. But coal was the backbone.
Coal supplied more than half of the power in the state. It looked like a licence to print money, absolutely.
A couple of hours south of Perth, a towering complex stands as a symbol of an industry that's powered the nation for 100 years. Bluewaters Power Station was opened amid much fanfare barely 10 years ago.
No one at the time was really thinking about the end of coal.
Jay Scoffin used to work at the coal mine that supplies Bluewaters. He watched the power plant and with it, the town's hopes take shape.
It had, since the 60s, a very good business, very good employers, and it was all based around coal, fossil fuels.
But Bluewaters' fortunes have not lived up to the initial optimism. In 2010, two Japanese conglomerates, Sumitomo and Kansai Electric, paid $1.2 billion for the plant.
They would have invested, by some estimates, $500 million of their own money, equity, into a $1.2 billion transaction to buy that plant. The rest was funded by debt.
Since then, Bluewaters has struggled to maintain its local coal supply, but more fundamentally, it's being undercut by a flood of cheaper renewable energy.
They basically came to the realisation in 2020 that they weren't going to make anything back on that $500 million, and so, as you do in accounting terms, you write the investment off. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's the reality.
We've already written down our coal assets by $400 million, and we're writing down the other coal assets even more as we go forward, because the business model of coal-fired power stations is simply totally broken.
In June, the WA government announced it would close its two remaining coal plants by 2029, leaving Bluewaters as the state's sole coal-fired generator. The decision has set the clock ticking on an ambitious plan to spend $3.8 billion over the next 7 years, building the new renewable energy capacity and storage needed to replace the coal.
$3.8 billion is an awful lot of money. However, what we're finding is that this is a much better business model than our current coal-fired power stations.
Coal is now suddenly finding itself getting pushed off the system because it's a more expensive fuel source, and its technology and cost structure can't compensate for that. They're not built to be flexible. Governments of left and right might or might not like the change. They don't have a choice.
Coal exporting states such as New South Wales and Queensland are reaping the benefits of record global coal prices. But energy analyst Bruce Mountain says the rising cost of coal as a fuel is also hastening its demise.
The newer black coal generators in Queensland are more efficient and they can operate more flexibly than some of the older generating units. But most of them are affected in roughly the same way.
This is action.
The Queensland government and giant energy provider AGL last month announced plans to get out of coal by 2035, a decade ahead of schedule. In June, the Australian Energy Market Operator forecast that up to 60% of coal-fired capacity in the national electricity market across the eastern states would retire by 2030.
This is a once-in-a-generation transition of the energy system in Australia.
To deal with the loss of so much coal-fired capacity, the market operator says the amount of large-scale renewable energy in the grid needs to rise 9-fold by 2050, as demand for electricity almost doubles. It says there'll also need to be a 5-fold increase in the amount of rooftop solar in the system, along with a tripling of so-called firming capacity needed to make sure the lights stay on.
So things like pumped hydro, batteries and gas-fired power generation that smooth out the peaks in that variable renewable energy and fill in the troughs.
Are you confident that in 10 or 15 years' time, when people flick the switch, the lights will come on?
Am I confident that the lights will go on? That's our job, absolutely. The reliability of supply is first and foremost in all of our minds every single day.
Across Australia, the demise of coal power has been well flagged, but it's the pace of the change that's turning heads. From the oldest coal-fired power station to the newest here in WA, at Bluewaters, The same forces are affecting the industry and putting plants on a fast track to closure. For ex-coal worker Jay Scoffin, the winding down of coal will be hard for towns like Collie that have been built on the industry, but he's remaining optimistic that Collie can still prosper in future.
But we didn't start with coal, we started with timber, we morphed into coal, and whatever happens next, we've got the ability to transition into the next phase, whatever that is, and perhaps for a greener future.
The stakes are enormous. They're as high as they can get. We're playing to keep the lights on here, and in political and economic terms, you know, the stakes don't get much higher.